Okay, so what I want to do here is do the graphic organizer with you. I passed it out last week. If you don't have a copy of it, so you lost it, this is pretty easy just to jot down on a piece of paper. My goal for this little video is to make sure that you know how to do all the stuff I'm going to ask you to do with the normal curve. So there are two things that I might ask you to do. The first is find a proportion or find the area, find the percentage of people that are between two values or less than a value, or find a specific value, which is the one where we're going to go backwards. Okay, so notice in the first row, we're dealing with a standard normal distribution. Remember, a standard normal distribution, when you see the word standard in front, tells us that it's going to be normal with a mean of 0 and a standard deviation of 1. Okay, so if I draw my normal curve, which I should do anytime I'm doing one of these problems, whether it is going to be using my blue paper or if I'm using my calculator. Draw the picture, normal 0, 1. The question says what percent. That's why I know that it's going to be a normal CDF problem or a blue paper. And that this number right here is actually my z-score. Negative 0.65 is my z-score. And so if I draw my picture, I know the mean at the center is 0. The negative 0.65 is going to be right here. And it says less than, so shade that, and that helps me to remember what my lower bound is going to be. My lower bound would be negative 10,000, my upper bound negative 0.65. Now, if you're doing this using the blue paper, it's pretty simple. You're just going to go and find the z-score of negative 0.65 and see the area. If you're using the calculator, you must write normal CDF. You must tell me the lower, the upper, the mean, and the standard deviation. My lower is going to be negative 10,000. My upper, I stop my shading at negative 0.65. My mean was 0. My standard deviation was 1. And then it's just go to my calculator to type that in. Remember, you're going to do that in the calculator using your second vars. Choose normal CDF and type in that information in that order. Again, without writing out what you're typing in, you don't get the credit. Type that in, you should get 0.2578. 0.2578. Okay, now what if we're finding the proportion, but notice down here in this one, I don't have a standard normal distribution. I'm given a different mean and a different standard deviation. And it asks a proportion. So the word percentage, I see the word proportion means the same thing. And then are greater than 30, greater than 30. Now, be ready to read a problem carefully. I might not give you the symbols for mean and standard deviation. You might have to read the problem, see the words in it. But if I draw my picture, okay, there's my general normal curve, normal with a mean of 25, standard deviation of 3. Here is the center, it's 25. Greater than 30, let's just put 30 right here. It said greater than, so I'm shading to the right. And this means that I'm starting shading at 30, that's my lower bound, and my upper bound is going to be positive 10,000. So I'm going to go ahead and do my normal CDF with my lower, my upper, my mean, and my standard deviation. Now, for the sake of me really struggling on the previous video to write the E in lower and in upper, I'm using L and U. It would be good for you to at least put low and up. Lower and upper would be preferred. We said our lower bound was 30. Our upper bound was positive 10,000. Our mean this time was 25, and the standard deviation was 3. You run that out, you're going to get 0.0475. 0.0475. So there's not a whole lot of data above 30 given that the mean is 25 and the standard deviation is 3. Only about 4.75% of the data is in that shaded region. So that's what's happening when we're finding the proportions. What if I ask you to find a specific value? So again, in a standard normal distribution, so we're talking 0 is the mean, standard deviation is 1. Now I don't ask you for a percentage. I say, what is the value, or what score, what value gives us a percentile of 35%? 35% of the data, actually in this case, is above x, So if we think about drawing our normal curve here, here's my normal 0, 1. Okay, and I'm shading, I want 35% to be above the value of x. Well, if I do inverse norm, or I'm using my blue sheet going backwards, inverse norm tells me that I need to be going to the left. The inverse norm always says what's the area below a certain value of x, below a certain value of x. And so I know that the area I'm actually interested in over here would have to be 1 minus 0.35. I'm interested in knowing the area being 0.65. Or in other words, what's at the 65th percentile. So I'm going to go ahead and do my inverse norm. It asks for the area, which is my 0.65. Remember, 0.65 is below x, 0.35 was above. My mean was 0, and my standard deviation was 1. And so if we go and we type that in on our graphing calculators, what value are you going to get? And so I don't have this one in front of me, so give me 1 second to type it in for myself. I'm going to my second vars. I'm going to inverse norm, which was number 3. My area was 0.65, my mean, my standard deviation, and I hit enter, and it gives me that the value of x must have been 0.38. That would tell me the value of x is 0.38 or 0.385. That's the z-score such that 35% of the data is above x. Now down here, we're using our mean and standard deviation 25 and 3 again, and we're told what score. I don't know the value, I know the percentile. So I know that if I'm looking for the 40th percentile, okay, there's my normal, mean of 25, standard deviation of 3. 40th percentile means that 40% of the data is to the left of my value of x. I'm trying to find what value of x, what score would have 40% of the data strictly below it. So I'm going to use my inverse norm here. This time the area just is 40 because that's the area to the left. So my area is the 40%. The mean was 25 and the standard deviation was 3. So if I type all of that in on my calculator, I should get an answer pretty easily. Remember, area 0.4. Now make sure you change the mean and the standard deviation on yours. It's not 0, 1 anymore. And you should get your value of x, your score you would have to get will be 24.23. 24.23. Okay. Hey, hopefully this helps you figure out what you're supposed to do, whether you're finding a percentage, finding a proportion using standard, using the standard normal curve or any other normal curve using normal CDF, or do you know the area and you're trying to find the value of x, find a specific value, in which case you're using inverse norm.